What's going on, everybody? This is Vinny Maletti with Maletti Law, the strongest name in law. The date now is June 28, 2022. The time now is 9:27 a.m. It is a beautiful Tuesday morning here in Brooklyn, New York. We survived the first Monday of the week, which is usually the most crazy day. Generally, every single day of our lives is crazy. So, whatever. At the end of the day, every day of the week is still. We're busy here at Maletti Law. We are busy and we are obscenely overwhelmed every single day that ends in the letter Y. So that's how we roll. Flex is now licking my ankle. He has discovered that I am speaking to video, therefore now he must interrupt me any moment. So any moment now you'll be seeing pause in this camera, jumping on my lap. Sorry, this is what he does. I was hoping he'd be sunbathing, but no. All right. So really quickly with this video, I just wanted to touch on something pretty fast because one, I thought this was helpful for my team to make a training video, but then I figured I'd share it with everybody. So, okay. So let's have a Millennium University. Let's have like a Vinny University moment. Every time you file a motion, right? So what's a motion? A motion is basically a formal document in which you're asking the court to do something. You are filing a motion for, I don't know, motion to dismiss the complaint, a motion to compel the other side to produce evidence, a motion, I don't know, for whatever, summary judgment. A motion is, it's a formal document that you are presenting to the court to ask for some kind of relief or ask the court to do something. Every motion, any good motion, will always have a notice of it. It will have the motion notice, which is kind of like the court's version of like a cover letter, let's say. That's the easiest way to think about it. The actual motion document and an affidavit or some kind of affirmation, which is a testimony from some particular person, usually someone who's relevant or at the center of the subject matter, the testimony of someone firsthand who is speaking to something. So you have a motion to dismiss. A motion to dismiss will be preceded by a notice of motion to dismiss, and also will have, say, an affirmation in support from an attorney or an affidavit in support from someone with personal knowledge. Maybe you represent a business and you're filing a motion to dismiss the complaint filed against you. You would have the business owner or maybe some kind of manager at the business testify on an affidavit, on a formalized document, testify to the facts of the case to be able to get it dismissed. So take a step back. Notice, motion, notice, some kind of memorandum of law, some kind of brief, and an affidavit. Those are the three things at a bare minimum you need, right, to file a motion. So the point of this video is to just discuss what are the minimum requirements that you need for an affidavit, what are the essential elements that you need for an affidavit, and the general rules behind it. I basically think this is helpful because as one of the things, as I am speaking, let's say, to my staff, right, one of the things that you want to make sure you touch on all the minimum basics. They could write, look, everybody here at the firm, everybody has freedom to do, what they believe is the greatest thing to do, as long as, what they think is the best thing to do, as long as we meet the minimum requirements by the courts and by the code. So we don't mind, obviously don't mind if you want to be creative. We don't mind if you speak to your client directly. One of our reps, one of our staff, one of our team, our legal clerks, advisors, associates speak to the client directly and want to do something, specifically with the client, convey a certain message. That's fine, as long as we get the minimum requirements. So this video is just to express and explain the minimum requirements necessary for all affidavits. Okay, so here we are. Big four. All affidavits must be in writing, must be a declaration from an individual known as an affiant, okay? It must be from a first-person point of view. So the person on the affidavit must speak for him or herself, okay? The affiant must speak for him or herself, and it must be signed and notarized by the affiant, him or herself, directly. So it must be in writing, it must be a self-declaration, it must be from a first-person point of view, and it must be signed and notarized by the person testifying on this particular affidavit. Okay, those are the four essential elements. These are all, supported by law. Obviously, aside from the code, these are also enforced in case law. Model. Right now, I think there's a case called Models, which is kind of like the prevailing case, which was ruled in 2011. 11 years ago, I get it, but still good case law. Still, I guess I want to say the word is seminal. So, like the seminal case right now today, gives the same advice, same guidance. Affidavits must be generally made on personal knowledge. Affidavits, must be based on personal knowledge, must be stated in the affidavit that's saying as such. You must briefly explain who the affiant is and their connection to the litigation. This is part of whole part of that declaration of the individual, first person point of view. General as a practice note should be concise. It should be easy to read. It should be, one little paragraph. It doesn't need to be a formal. It doesn't need to be, a 500-page document. Paragraph. Fact. Credible fact. Fact as exhibit, etc. Something to that effect. So remember, the big four things are: it must be in writing, it must be declaration signed by the individual, it must be in a first person point of view, somebody testifying personal knowledge, and it must be signed and notarized by the person testifying. Now, there is mandatory language on all affidavits. All right, so don't forget this. All your affidavits must have this mandatory language. The first paragraph is always going to be, to my knowledge, all the facts stated in this affidavit are true and correct. To my knowledge, all the facts stated herein, this affidavit, are true and correct. The second one is, I am over 18 years of age and I reside at, okay? You need to make sure that they are over 18 years of age, they're able to testify, they reside at, boom, you don't have to give the exact address, city and state is fine, county is fine, show that there's some kind of connection. That same paragraph, you're going to have a line that says, I am fully competent to make this affidavit, and I have personal knowledge on the facts stated in this affidavit. Why? Because again, it must come from a first person point of view. So your first paragraph is going to be, to my knowledge, all the facts stated in this affidavit are true and correct. Second paragraph is going to be, I'm over 18 years of age, I reside in, and I'm fully competent to make this affidavit, and I have personal knowledge of the facts stated in this affidavit. And your third portion, your third paragraph, immediately after that, you can combine these, but your third paragraph should say, I am familiar with all the papers and proceedings in this action, and with all the facts and circumstances, I hereby set forth below. Boom. Okay? Those are your three paragraphs. You can combine them, that's fine. They just need to be somewhere, because that's the mandatory language in all affidavits. And then that's it. Most of the time, just as remember, we discussed, what's expected when you file your motion, why an affidavit is important. We discussed the 4 general rules concerning affidavits that must always be met. We pointed out some case law that supports this, so we have a little bit of authority behind it. We pointed out the 3 mandatory pieces of language. Now, finally, I just want to point out what you should touch on in your affidavit. Always include, I think, these 4 particular items. Always include who the affiant is. You could, make sure it's expressed. I am the CEO. I am the president. I know this. I know that. I was involved here. I was involved there. Make sure we know who this affiant is. That's the first part. Second part, make sure the reader understands who the affiant is in relation to the person, the subject matter. I am the CEO of Maletti Law. I work closely with Mr. Maletti. Mr. Maletti is the president. Mr. Maletti is God King. I am right-hand man. I am right-hand woman. That's the relation to the person, okay? The third thing, I think, explain why that person is qualified to render the position on the subject matter. This is generally implied in some situations, right? So, for instance, you're a wife or a husband, and you're testifying for the spouse, you're testifying in the divorce proceeding, you're a CEO of a company, and you're testifying for the company. Your qualifications are kind of, sometimes they're implied, but I would expressly point it out. Why am I qualified to render this position? I am the CEO. I have worked here for 10 years. This is why I'm qualified, And another thing I would do is why the affiant's opinion is reasonable and makes sense. I think that last portion, gets lost a lot because people just blurt facts out a lot of times, which is, you're not required to do this, but people blurt out facts all the time. And they don't particularly tell them, they don't point out why it makes sense, why this is the smarter idea, why we should, why this is a really good affidavit, and why this is proper and important. So I think that it's very helpful to just express in one paragraph, why this opinion is reasonable and why it makes sense, why it's being offered, why we're testifying in the way that we're testifying. I think that's very helpful because again, you want to build credibility. The most frustrating word to hear in response is self-serving affidavit, or just where they discredit the actual affiant, which is extremely frustrating. So that's my take on it. So remember, in this video, we just kind of walk through what are the bare minimum requirements needed for an affidavit. We spoke about where they come up, right? Maybe a memorandum of law, something we're filing, a motion, a complaint, anything, right? In this context, it was a notice of motion, but they come in any context, and whenever you're filing, you need someone to testify firsthand. The 4 general rules concerning affidavits. Remember, writing, declaration from an individual, first person point of view, signed and notarized. Then we talked about some cases that were supportive of this. Then we finally spoke about the mandatory 3 points of language. We spoke about, to my knowledge, blah. I am over 18 years of age and I reside at blah. I am fully competent, blah. I am familiar with the papers and proceedings in this action. The mandatory language. And then finally, just some general pointers, discussing who the affiant is, the relationship to the subject matter or the person, why that affiant is qualified to render an opinion, and why that opinion is reasonable, makes sense. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this was a good training video for everybody. If there are any questions or concerns, obviously leave it in the comments below. Email me at vmaletti@malettilaw.com. That's vmaletti@malettilaw.com. Or visit the website, www.malettilaw.com. That's www.malettilaw.com. I'm noticing Google is in their closed captions writing military law. No, we are not militarylaw.com. It is Maletti Law. Though I look like Captain America, I understand, I get it. I'm Jack and I'm handsome and I have this great physique. I have $1 million physique. I understand. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Google, for noticing. But no, we're not military law. We are Maletti Law, the strongest name in law. Sign up to the newsletter if you haven't. It's really awesome. You really should. We have new content all the time. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. I probably should have said this in the beginning, but I just don't think about it. I really need a script. All right, so that's it. So hopefully this was riveting. Hopefully this was educational, and I look forward to seeing all your fantastic affidavits from everybody and expressing nothing but important information that is relevant and reasonable and comes from proper people. Have a beautiful day. As we close, yours and Law's love and lifts. Always staying usually motivated, everybody, and have a wonderful day here from Maletti Law.